Hey there, Wranglers. How you doing? I've been gone for a while. Let me tell you where I've been. I did a shorter video earlier, and now I'm going to give you the detailed version. I was in the hospitals from the 12th to the 25th. Well, what happened was this. I was sitting on the couch. I just finished a sandwich, and I started throwing up blood. I probably ended up throwing up almost 2 cups of blood over that night. As soon as I started puking up the blood, Jennifer got me to the ER. That's all I remember. Showing up at the ER. I don't remember going inside the doors or anything. I remember pulling up to the curb, and evidently, so that's my the memory stops there. The next memory I had was waking up in the hospital and Jennifer laying there looking at me. She was smiling, and I remember wanting an apple, and they wouldn't give me an apple. They did give me some apple juice. And this was almost 3 days later after I had started throwing up the blood. Well, what happened? Well, let me tell you, I had an upper GI bleed, and I had a problem with my esophagus right above my pyloric valve, which is the valve that kind of keeps stuff down in your stomach. And I had a blood vessel that was bleeding out inside there. This is related to my stroke because it's caused by the blood thinners I was on. So they did surgery, got me squared away, so I wasn't throwing up blood. But anyway, they did that. What happened on that night, according to Jennifer, was they got me in the back and they put an IV in my arm, and for whatever reason, I guess I was thrashing around or something. They had to stitch the IV in there and tape it in there. And I was, making noise like, when they were doing that. And they took me to a different hospital in Gainesville. This was in my town, and they took me to Gainesville, Georgia. And I checked into the hospital there. I don't remember any of this. And that's where they did surgery and all of that. And I was sedated at this point. But at this point, I don't remember what was going on. Was sedated at this point. An IV was put in my neck and sewn into my neck. I've never heard of that before, but it's happened. And the IV catheter was probably this long. They said it went down into my jugular or whatever. It went down into my heart, and it was going directly into my heart. So they did that. Well, anyway, they just stopped the bleeding, and I woke up. They didn't like what they saw in my blood. I didn't have enough hemoglobin. I was generating a lot of ammonia, which made them concerned about my liver. So while I was laying there in the hospital for the rest of the time, they were messing around trying to get my blood squared away. They did not like the fact that I had all the, the ammonia, the low hemoglobin, all of that stuff. Well, the whole low hemoglobin is explainable. I had thrown a bunch of blood up, and I guess I don't know if they did transfusions then or not. Long story short, they kind of went on a rampage. One of the doctors did, and was saying that my liver is shot and I need to get on the thing for a liver transplant. Well, that's not true because my liver enzymes are totally normal, and I happen to have an autoimmune disease, antiphospholipid disease, which thickens your blood, which caused my stroke, and it can damage other organs. And the fact that I swallowed so much blood, I wonder if that had anything to do with the ammonia level. Well, eventually the ammonia level was backing off, but my INR, which is my blood thickness, and my hemoglobin, they couldn't get that quite right. So I basically laid there for over a week while they fiddled around trying to figure this out. And it was two young doctors, the young bitch doctor that said, she was a total bitch. It was just basically like, oh, you're going to have to get on the list for a liver transplant, blah, 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 blah. She was called in because my other doctor, another young doctor, Dr. Patel, couldn't figure out what was going on, why my blood was going up and down. And I can tell you why. And I'll do that in a second. So he had called her in. My blood levels were varying because my hemoglobin was because I swear every 4 hours or so they're taking, 3 or 4, maybe 5 tubes of my blood out. I'm not getting enough fluid, so my blood pressure was low. And they just basically kept doing that, checking it, and doing that, and checking it. And my hemoglobin would go up a little bit, then it would come back down, and then it would go back up. Well, finally, an older doctor, guy like from Uganda, I think, came in, and he basically said, he had him hang fluids on me, give me a big bag of fluids, gave me some iron, gave me a blood transfusion. Everything started to turn around and go up. Well, finally, I'm thinking I'm getting to go home. It's no fun being in the hospital, and I've been in the hospital over half of this year. And lo and behold, that doctor, the hematologist, the bitch doctor that called in about that said I'm going to, explode or whatever, basically said, "Oh, if you make it 6 months, you need to get on the list." Well, she ordered a biopsy, bone marrow biopsy, and so I had to wait around for that. And she told me, after you go for the bone marrow biopsy, you can leave because my other blood levels had finally straightened out. I said, "Good, I have no problem with that. I mean, we'll do that." The next day came, and I hadn't had the biopsy yet. I said, "When's it scheduled?" And the nurse called down and said, "Well, we can't give you a time." And she hung up on the doctor and said, "I think that's a bunch of crap." And she slammed the phone down on the doctor. Well, I told the nurse, or the lead doctor and the lead nurse that day, after I'd heard it that evening, or that early that morning, they wouldn't give me a time for my biopsy. I said, "I want to leave. We can postpone the biopsy. I can do that on an outpatient thing, but I need to get out of here." Well, they didn't like that. The nurse liked it. The other doctor didn't really like it, but she goes, "Okay, will you agree to hang around to noon?" I said, I'll stay till noon. I mean, I'll stay, I'll stay till lunchtime. If they haven't called me by lunchtime, I'm leaving. Bottom line, no discussion. So, guess what? The charge nurse came in, and I was talking with him. He goes, "This doesn't make any sense. Your eyes aren't yellow. Your skin's not yellow. You don't look jaundiced. You don't show any signs of ammonia problems or anything like that. Because when you get too much ammonia in your blood, you kind of act wonky." So none of that was going on. And he goes, "You have the right to leave when you want to leave." And they go, "You may say you left against medical advice, but you have the right to leave." So I said, "Okay, I'm going to do this." And I was talking to him. I was talking to him about 11:20, almost not quite 11:30, but between 11:15 and 11:30. And I said, "Okay, I guess I'm going to be going here. They haven't called me." Well, right in the middle of our conversation, they called me and had me do the biopsy. I said, "Fine, let's get it over with." I go down, and they take me down to the biopsy place. They injected my butt with lidocaine. They couldn't quite give me the sedation they wanted to because of my blood pressure was bouncing up and down because I wasn't getting enough fluids. I hadn't drank or ate anything in almost almost 18 hours like I was supposed to. So they told me not to do that. So I'm dehydrated. The amount of fluid in my blood is low. So of course I'm going to have low blood pressure. So anyway, I get in there. I get minimal sedation, but they Novocaine it, lidocaine up, shots in my butt, and then they put a drill down into your butt and into your bone. Well, I laid there and I felt most of it. It didn't really hurt. The lidocaine did its job, and I could feel it. I could feel it digging into my bone, which wasn't terribly painful. It was just interesting. And at one point, then one nurse asked the other one, he goes, "Is he grimacing? How's he doing?" She goes, "He's just laying there chilling." And I just looked at her and I'm like, "Yeah, fine." And I could feel it. I wouldn't, it was maybe on a 1 to 10 pain scale, maybe a 3. Okay, at this point. So they got done. It was a real quick procedure. Most of it was waiting around for the procedure once I got down to the operating area. Anyway, I get back upstairs and I say, "Okay, let's go. I'm ready to go." And the nurse comes in and says, "The doctor wants to test your hemoglobin again, and if you're below 7.6 hemoglobin, she wants to give you a transfusion." Now, hospital policy is they don't give transfusions unless you're below 7. And I told her that. And she goes, "Well, different doctors have different, requirements or whatever." And I said, "I don't care." I said, "I'm not doing the tests." And she wanted to take labs again. And I showed them my arms, which were just beat to hell. There was literally almost no place on my arms anymore to take blood from. You know, I was so sore and swollen and bruised. And I said, no, I'm not doing it. I said, end of discussion. I'm leaving. And so I said, I'm not going to do I'm not going to get the hemoglobin test. I am not going to get a transfusion. Those take about 4 hours or 5 hours. It usually takes them an hour after they say you're getting a transfusion to bring this stuff in. So and then the transfusion itself takes between 3 or 4 hours. So I'm just like, no, I'm going. Put my foot down. Well, they had no choice. They let me go. But they didn't say I went against medical advice. They didn't make me sign that, which was great. I did everything they had wanted me to do, and but each doctor wanted me to do a little more, and a little more, and a little more. I was ready to go home. There's only so much healing you can do in the hospital. Okay, honestly. At one point, it becomes counterproductive because you're so stressed and you're so anxious, and people can come and visit you, but you're so alone. And so anyway, got the paperwork done, and I got the hell out of there and got home. Had really good sleep on, here at home. Finally, started to feel a hell of a lot better. I got energy, and I'm eating. I'm modifying my diet so that I get more iron in it, and taking some iron pills. And I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna make this work. And I'll get my liver double checked, but this is just silly. I get my liver checked every like couple months anyway, and it's always been fine. Anyway, so Wranglers, that's where I've been, and that's what happened, and that's what I've done. Oh, now let me tell you the best part. Okay, well, the only thing I remember about being asleep, okay, when I was asleep, my near-death experience that I mentioned was the fact that I remember standing in this dark, dark forest, and I was standing on the rim of like a big giant well or hole or something. It was a hole in the ground that had stones around it, man-made and man-cut stones. And I'm standing there, and it's me, but I don't look like me. I'm very thin and white and pale and translucent almost, and generating light. I'm wearing a blue and white robe that's kind of shimmering blue and white. And there's another creature across the way that looks just like me, and our heads were kind of elongated to the side, both of us. And we just kind of stood there for a long time, and it was very uncomfortable, very scary. Then we finally, how should I say it? Finally, it jumped in. The other creature, like me, jumped in, and I followed it, and we just started falling and falling and falling. I didn't feel like I was falling into hell. I didn't feel like I was going to heaven or falling back to earth. It felt like I was falling into oblivion, and it was scary and uncomfortable and dark, and it hit me on a real deep emotional level. It was confusing and creepy, and there was a sense of doom with it, and it's the only thing I can explain. I didn't feel like I was gonna, like, I don't know how to describe it. I felt like it was a small taste of death, or some process of death, because I was close to dying. I was in critical condition in the ICU. I was critical but stable after they operated, and they had me in they had me in the ICU. They had me in the critical care unit. And when they brought me in, the doctors in the first hospital, Jim said they were nervous, and they had aspirated me. They put a tube down my throat, sucked the blood out, and all this. And they decided pretty quickly that they needed, better expertise, because it was something they felt like they were in above their heads. And I don't know exactly how close I came, but I just remember that eerie feeling and seeing that and feeling that. That's the only thing I remember. I was technically in a coma for 3.5 days. And then I finally woke up. And anyway, that's the test story. That is the near-death experience part. So anyway, Wranglers, take care of yourselves and be careful. Don't catch an autoimmune disease. I have antiphospholipid disease. Take care, and I'll see you at the next roundup, where we'll get back to our normal content. Thanks, guys.